I am Robert Morrison, 67 years old, and 3 days after I buried my wife of 42 years, I watched my youngest son try to drug me at her memorial gathering. What he didn't know was that I had already replaced every pill in my medicine cabinet with vitamins, and that the glass of whiskey he was about to hand me wasn't the one I was going to drink. Before I tell you what happened when his own brother collapsed instead, I need you to know something. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world where family still means something, please comment below and hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to share proves that grief doesn't just come from death. Sometimes it comes from watching the people you raised become strangers, willing to destroy you for money. The living room was suffocating, not from the heat, the AC was running fine, but from the weight of 60 people pretending they weren't eyeing my bank account while offering condolences about Helen. My wife, my partner, my everything. Gone at 64 from a stroke that came out of nowhere and took her in 3 hours. 3 hours. One moment she was laughing at something on her phone. The next moment she was on the floor, and by the time the ambulance arrived, I already knew. You know. After 42 years, you just know. The memorial gathering was at our family home in Prescott, Arizona. The house Helen and I built in 1987 with our own hands. Well, mostly my hands, since I'm an architect. 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, mountain views that Helen would sit and paint every Sunday morning. That house was supposed to be our retirement dream. Instead, it became my prison of memories. I stood by the fireplace, shaking hands, accepting hugs, listening to the same script over and over. She was such a light. I can't imagine what you're going through. If you need anything, anything at all of it hollow, all of it performance, except for one person who wasn't performing grief. My youngest son, Marcus, was performing something else entirely. Impatience. Marcus is 35. He works, well, he says he works in cryptocurrency consulting, which as far as I can tell means he gambles with other people's money on digital coins I don't understand. His wife, Vanessa, is a lifestyle influencer with 40,000 Instagram followers and 0 income. They live in Scottsdale in a house they can't afford, driving cars they can't afford, wearing clothes that cost more than most people's mortgage. 3 months before Helen died, Marcus had come to me with a proposal. "Dad," he'd said, all slick confidence and rehearsed pitch, "Vanessa and I have this incredible opportunity. A crypto mining startup. We just need bridge capital. 200,000. We'll triple it in 6 months." I'd looked at him, this boy I'd raised, and said one word, "No." His face had twitched, just for a second. Then the smile came back. "Dad, come on. It's a sure thing." "Nothing is sure, Marcus, especially not imaginary money." He'd left angry. He didn't visit again until Helen's funeral. Now he was here, at her memorial, standing by the drinks table, watching me with eyes that weren't grieving. They were calculating. Next to him stood my older son, Richard. Richard is 38, works as a civil engineer in Denver, married with 2 kids. He's the responsible one, the one who calls every Sunday, the one who helped me plan the funeral when I couldn't think straight. Richard had flown in the day Helen died, and hadn't left my side since. Good kid. Great man, actually. But here's what I noticed. Richard looked exhausted. No, not exhausted. Defeated. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes were red, and every time Marcus whispered something to Vanessa, Richard would flinch, like he'd been struck. Something was wrong. "Dad!" Marcus appeared at my elbow, carrying 2 glasses of whiskey. "Here. You look like you could use this." I stared at the amber liquid. Helen and I used to share a glass every Friday night, sitting on that porch, watching the sunset. The thought of drinking it without her made my throat close up. "I don't think I can, son." "Dad, you need it. Trust me. You've been so strong through all of this, but you need to let yourself feel it." He pressed the glass into my hand. His smile was warm. His eyes were not. That's when I saw it. Just a flicker. His eyes darted to Vanessa, who was standing near the bookshelf, her perfectly manicured hand resting on a leather-bound photo album. She gave the tiniest nod, the kind of nod you give when a plan is moving forward. I took the glass. "Thanks, Marcus." "Of course, Dad." He clinked his own glass against mine. To Mom. She'd want you to take care of yourself. He drank. I raised the glass to my lips and pretended to sip, letting the whiskey wet my lips, but not swallowing a drop. Marcus watched me like a hawk. When he seemed satisfied, he turned to greet another guest. I set the glass down on the mantel when no one was looking and walked to the kitchen. My hands were shaking, but not from grief. From rage, from a suspicion so terrible I didn't want to believe it. I pulled out my phone and texted the one person I trusted. Ben Reeves, my business partner for 30 years before we both retired. Ben had sold his half of Morrison and Reeves Architecture 2 years ago for $4 million. I'd sold mine 3 months ago for $3.8 million. $3.8 million, now sitting in my personal account because Helen and I were about to buy a beach house in San Diego and retire there properly. Except Helen was gone, and that money was now mine alone. And Marcus knew it. The text I sent, Ben said, "Need you to come to the house. Now. Don't drink anything." His response came in seconds. On my way. I walked back into the living room just in time to see Marcus hand my whiskey glass to Richard. "Here, Rich. Dad doesn't want his. You look like you could use a drink." Richard hesitated, then took it. "Thanks, man." He downed half the glass in one gulp. I was across the room in 3 strides, but I was too late. Richard had already drunk it. I grabbed the glass from his hand. "Richard, are you okay?" He looked at me, confused. "Yeah, Dad. I'm fine. Why?" I looked at Marcus. My youngest son's face was a mask of concern, but his eyes were watching Richard with the intensity of a scientist watching a lab rat. I couldn't say it. Not here. Not in front of 60 people. "I just want to make sure you're okay." "You've been doing so much." Richard squeezed my shoulder. "I'm good, Dad. I promise." That was 15 minutes ago. Now Richard was sitting on the couch, his face pale, his hand pressed to his temple. "Dad," he mumbled, his words starting to slur. "I feel really weird, like dizzy." Vanessa was the first to react. She rushed over, all concerned daughter-in-law. "Oh my God, Richard, you're probably just exhausted. You've barely slept in days." "Maybe I should lie down," Richard said, trying to stand. His legs buckled. He fell forward, catching himself on the coffee table. The room went silent. 60 people turned to stare. "Someone call 911!" I shouted, catching Richard before he collapsed completely. His eyes were rolling back in his head. His breathing was shallow, rapid. This wasn't exhaustion. This was chemical. Marcus was suddenly there, grabbing Richard's other arm. "Dad, what happened? What's wrong with him?" The concern in his voice was perfect. The fear was flawless. But I was watching his hands, and his hands weren't shaking. A man watching his brother collapse doesn't have steady hands. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. The EMTs loaded Richard onto a stretcher. Vanessa was crying, beautiful tears streaming down her perfect makeup. Marcus was shouting questions at the paramedics. And I just stood there, watching my youngest son perform grief, while my oldest son was rushed away, drugged by a drink meant for me. Ben arrived as the ambulance pulled away. He found me standing on the porch, staring at the red taillights disappearing down the mountain road. "Robert, what the hell is going on?" I turned to look at him. Ben is 68, ex-Marine, built like a bulldog. He's been my best friend since college. I think Marcus just tried to drug me, and Richard drank it instead. Ben's face went hard. "You sure?" "No, but I'm going to find out." I told him what I'd seen. The glass, the nod, the way Marcus watched Richard collapse with steady hands. Ben listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. "What do you need?" "I need to know what Marcus is planning. I need cameras, audio, everything. And I need you to call your guy." Ben's guy was Jake Patterson, former FBI, now runs a private security firm that specializes in corporate espionage. If anyone could find out what Marcus was up to, it was Jake. "Consider it done," Ben said. "But Robert, if you're wrong." "I know," I said. "If I'm wrong, I just destroyed my relationship with my son by accusing him of trying to drug me 3 days after his mother died. But Ben, I'm not wrong." The hospital called at 11 p.m. Richard was stable but unconscious. Blood work showed a massive dose of a benzodiazepine, specifically lorazepam. It's an anti-anxiety medication. In normal doses, it calms you down. In the dose Richard received, it's a chemical restraint. The doctor's exact words were, "Mr. Morrison, your son ingested enough lorazepam to sedate a horse. If he'd been alone, if he'd been driving, he could have died. Do you have any idea where he got this?" I said I didn't know, but I did know. I knew exactly where it came from, my medicine cabinet. Helen had been prescribed lorazepam after her mother died 5 years ago. She'd taken maybe 3 pills before deciding she didn't like how they made her feel. The bottle had been sitting in our bathroom ever since, forgotten until someone remembered. I drove home at midnight to an empty house that smelled like coffee and casserole dishes from well-meaning neighbors. The memorial guests were gone. The living room was cleaned up. Everything looked normal, but someone had been in my bathroom. The lorazepam bottle was exactly where it always was, but the pills inside, I knew without counting, were not the same. I took the bottle to the kitchen and crushed one of the pills with a mortar and pestle. It crumbled into white powder. I tasted a grain of it. Nothing. No bitter chemical taste. These weren't lorazepam. These were sugar pills. Someone had replaced the real medication with fakes. That meant someone had been planning this. Planning to drug me, to make me look confused, disoriented, incompetent. And they'd been planning it for a while. Jake Patterson arrived the next morning with a van full of surveillance equipment. He was a lean man in his 50s with sharp eyes and an economy of movement. "Ben filled me in," he said, shaking my hand. "I'm sorry about your wife, and I'm sorry about this situation. Just tell me you can help. I can help, but I need to know what you want. Proof or justice? Both," I said. We spent 6 hours wiring the house. Cameras in the living room, kitchen, my bedroom, my office, audio recorders in the phone lines, a keystroke logger on my computer. Jake even installed a GPS tracker on Marcus's Tesla. "If your son is planning what you think he's planning," Jake said, "he's going to need help. Probably a lawyer, maybe a doctor. People like this don't work alone." "People like what?" I asked. Jake looked at me with something like pity. "People willing to drug their own father to steal his money, Mr. Morrison. That's not amateur hour. That's sociopathic." Richard woke up that afternoon. I sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand while he blinked at the fluorescent lights. "Dad?" His voice was rough, confused. "What happened? You collapsed at the memorial. They think you were drugged." His eyes went wide. "Drugged? How?" I couldn't tell him the truth. "Not yet. They don't know. Maybe something you ate." But Richard wasn't stupid. He'd been an engineer for 15 years. He understood systems, patterns, causality. "Dad," he said slowly, "the last thing I remember is Marcus giving me your whiskey, the one you didn't want." I squeezed his hand. "Richard, I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be honest. Has Marcus asked you for money? Recently?" Richard's face did something complicated. Guilt, shame, anger, all at once. "Dad, just tell me." Richard closed his eyes. 6 weeks ago, he called me. Said he had an investment opportunity, needed $50,000. I told him I didn't have it. He said, Richard's voice broke. He said if I didn't help him, he'd lose everything. That Vanessa would leave him. That he'd kill himself. "Did you give it to him?" "No, I couldn't. Sarah and I are saving for the kids' college." "What did he say?" "He got angry. Said I was just like you, selfish, holding on to money while family suffers." Richard opened his eyes, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, I didn't think he'd—" "It's okay, son. This isn't your fault. But it was my fault. I'd raised a son who'd become this. A son who'd threatened suicide to manipulate his brother. A son who'd drug his own father." The next piece of the puzzle came from Jake 3 days later. He called me at 6 a.m. "Mr. Morrison, you need to see this." I drove to his office, a nondescript suite in a Tempe business park. Jake had 3 computer monitors showing me what he'd found. "Your son Marcus," Jake said, pulling up a bank statement, "is not a cryptocurrency consultant. He's a day trader with a gambling problem. In the last 8 months, he's lost $340,000. Most of it belongs to people who thought they were investing in a crypto fund. They weren't. He was using their money to cover his own losses. Classic Ponzi scheme. Monitor 2 showed credit card statements. Vanessa's spending. $60,000 in the last 3 months alone. Gucci. Hermes. First-class flights to Tulum. They're drowning, Jake said, and they've been drowning for a while. Monitor 3 showed something that made my blood run cold. It was a screenshot of a text conversation between Marcus and someone named Dr. Paulson. Marcus, how much do I give him? Dr. Paulson. Start with 10 milligrams daily. Crush it into his morning coffee. Within 2 weeks, he'll be showing signs. Memory loss, confusion, mood swings. Marcus. And then, Dr. Paulson, then you call me. I'll do the evaluation. I'll recommend inpatient care. Once he's committed, the power of attorney is automatic. Who's Dr. Paulson? I asked, my voice shaking. Jake pulled up a medical license lookup. Dr. Trevor Paulson, psychiatrist, had his license suspended in California 2 years ago for insurance fraud. Moved to Arizona, opened a private practice in Sedona. Specializes in geriatric psychiatry and estate planning. Estate planning? That's not a medical specialty. No, Jake agreed. It's a con. The plan was clear now. Marcus was going to slowly drug me with lorazepam, making me appear to develop sudden onset dementia. Then Dr. Paulson would evaluate me, declare me mentally incompetent, and Marcus would get emergency power of attorney. He'd have access to my $3.8 million. He'd pay off his debts, pay off his investors, and I'd be locked in a memory care facility, drugged into oblivion, legally erased. But the memorial gathering had accelerated their timeline. Richard, drinking the whiskey that was meant for me, had been an accident, but it gave me something Marcus didn't expect. Time. And evidence. What do you want to do? Jake asked. I looked at the text messages on the screen. My son, my baby boy, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd helped with homework, who'd cried in my arms when his first girlfriend broke his heart. That boy was gone. The man who replaced him was a stranger. I want to catch him in the act, I said. I want him to confess. All of it. On camera. Jake smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then, let's give him an opportunity. I called Marcus that afternoon. Son, I need your help with something. Of course, Dad. Anything. His voice was warm, concerned. Perfect. I've been having trouble sleeping, and I keep forgetting things. Little things, but it's scaring me. I thought maybe, could you take me to see a doctor? I don't want to go alone. There was a pause. A tiny, beautiful pause where I could hear him recalculating. Dad, absolutely. I know a great doctor. Very kind, very understanding. Let me set it up. Thank you, Marcus. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'll never have to find out, Dad. The appointment was set for 3 days later. Dr. Paulson's office in Sedona. Jake had already installed cameras in my car, in my jacket pocket, everywhere. The plan was simple. Go to the appointment, let them make their move, record everything, then call the police. But the night before the appointment, something happened that I didn't expect. Richard showed up at my door. He looked terrible. Thin, pale, haunted. Dad, we need to talk. We sat on the porch where Helen used to paint. The sunset was spectacular, all orange and purple, bleeding across the sky. Marcus came to see me in the hospital, Richard said. He told me you're sick, that you're developing dementia, that you need help. Richard, no, let me finish. He said you're scared to admit it, that you're trying to hide it. He said the family needs to come together to help you. He wants me to sign something, a paper giving him medical power of attorney over you. Richard looked at me with tears in his eyes. Dad, are you sick? Really sick? I took his hand. No, son. But Marcus wants everyone to think I am. I told him everything. The drugging. The fake psychiatrist. The plan to have me committed. The $340,000 in gambling debts. Richard listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was shaking. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. The way he kept asking about Mom's life insurance. The way he wanted to know about the house, the accounts. I should have known. This isn't your fault. He's my brother. He's my little brother. I taught him to throw a football, and now he's... Richard couldn't finish. Now he's someone we don't know, I said. What are you going to do? I'm going to that appointment tomorrow, and I'm going to let him try. Richard stood up, his jaw set. Then, I'm coming with you. The drive to Sedona took 2 hours. Richard drove while I sat in the passenger seat, pretending to be confused about the route. Marcus followed in his Tesla, Vanessa beside him. Jake was in a van a quarter-mile back, monitoring all the cameras. Dr. Paulson's office was in a strip mall between a yoga studio and a crystal shop, very Sedona. The waiting room smelled like lavender and had whale sounds playing softly. Richard and I sat while Marcus checked me in. Mr. Morrison, the doctor will see you now, the receptionist said. I'll come with you, Dad, Marcus said immediately. Of course, I said. Dr. Paulson's office was small, filled with degrees I was sure were fake and inspirational posters about peace and mindfulness. The man himself was in his 60 seconds, silver hair, kind eyes, the perfect mask of a compassionate healer. Robert, he said warmly, shaking my hand. Thank you for coming. I understand you've been having some concerns. Yes, I said, sitting down. I keep forgetting things. Where I put my keys. What day it is. It's scaring me. Dr. Paulson nodded sympathetically. That must be very frightening, especially after losing your wife so recently. Grief can affect our cognitive function, but I'd like to run a few simple tests, just to rule out anything serious. The tests were a joke. Simple math. Name the president. What year is it? I deliberately got a few wrong. Paused, like I was confused. Dr. Paulson took notes, nodding gravely. Marcus sat in the corner, watching with fake concern. After 20 minutes, Dr. Paulson set down his pen. Robert, I'm going to be honest with you. What I'm seeing here are early warning signs of cognitive decline. It could be stress-related. It could be the beginning of something more serious. I'd like to recommend a more comprehensive evaluation, possibly in a residential facility where we can monitor you closely. A facility? I let my voice shake. Like a home? A care community? Dr. Paulson corrected smoothly. Just for a few weeks, to make sure you're safe. Dad, Marcus leaned forward. I think Dr. Paulson is right. Just for a little while, until we figure out what's going on. But I don't want to leave my house, I said. It's where Helen is. All my memories. Dad, those memories will still be there, Marcus said. His hand was on my shoulder, squeezing. But we need to make sure you're safe. You could hurt yourself. Or wander off. We just want to protect you. That's when I turned and looked directly at him. Looked at my youngest son, who was trying to lock me away so he could steal my money. Marcus, I said, my voice suddenly clear and strong. Why don't you tell Dr. Paulson about the $340,000 you lost in crypto gambling? Marcus froze. His face went white. Dad, what are you? Or the text messages, I continued, where you and Dr. Paulson here planned to drug me with lorazepam to fake dementia symptoms. Dr. Paulson stood up. Mr. Morrison, I think you're confused. No, I said. I think I'm very clear, and so are the cameras. I tapped the pen in my jacket pocket, the pen that was actually a camera. Then I tapped the button on my watch. That was Jake's signal. The door to the office opened. It wasn't the receptionist. It was 2 Sedona police officers and an FBI agent. Dr. Trevor Paulson, the FBI agent said, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and practicing medicine with a suspended license. Marcus ran. He actually tried to run. He made it as far as the waiting room before the second officer tackled him. I watched through the office window as they cuffed him, as Vanessa shrieked and tried to film it all on her phone for Instagram before they took her phone as evidence. Richard stood beside me, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, son. The trials took 9 months. Marcus pled guilty to elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. He got 7 years in a federal prison. Dr. Paulson got 12. Vanessa, who cooperated and testified against Marcus, got probation and a divorce. The $340,000 Marcus stole from his investors was never recovered. He'd gambled it all away. I sold the house in Prescott. Too many ghosts, too many memories, both beautiful and poisonous. I bought that beach house in San Diego that Helen and I had dreamed about. Richard and his family visit every summer. And the $3, $8 million? I used half of it to start the Helen Morrison Foundation for Elder Financial Abuse Prevention. We provide free legal help to seniors being exploited by family members. We've helped 47 people in the last year. 47 people who might have ended up drugged, confused, locked away while their children looted their accounts. Marcus writes me letters from prison sometimes. They all say the same thing. He's sorry. He was desperate. He didn't know what else to do. I don't write back. I can't. The son I raised died somewhere in those lies and debts and desperate schemes. The man in that prison is a stranger. But Richard and I are rebuilding. Slowly, carefully, building something honest on the ruins of what was broken. This story isn't about revenge. It's about protection. It's about knowing that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you will see you as nothing more than an obstacle between them and money. And it's about fighting back, not with anger, but with intelligence, with preparation, with the courage to see the truth, even when the truth destroys you. Let me know in the comments, do you think I went too far, or was this the only way to stop him? I'd love to hear your thoughts.